You are watching William Patterson University Television.
Welcome back to the desk. We have Danny, Jesse, Joe, and Mateo here to break down the budding Pioneer soccer season. Now, fellas, the women's soccer team been off for the past week, but they're coming off a 2-1 loss to Stockton last Saturday. Danny, what did you see from that game?
Oh, it was a tough loss for the women's Pioneers. If we could take a look at the stats, they lost 2-1 against a very good Stockton team, very high up in the NJAC rankings. Looking at the stats, as I mentioned before, lost 2-1. Only 4 shots on goal. So for me, that's like the biggest stat as we go down: 6 saves, 2 corners, 7 fouls. But for me, the shots on goal is the biggest key for me, because the past 2 games they were held scoreless in their past 2 losses, and then with only 4 shots on goal, that's not a lot of opportunities to score goals. If you wanna win, you gotta score.
Jesse? Looking at this Stockton game and then the past game before against NYU, it was clear that the offense was really struggling to get into any type of groove. They really didn't know where they wanted to go with the ball. Usually a very middle team getting Marissa Edelman into the box. It seems they've kind of lost their identity, and I feel like they're trying to find it again. Joe?
Well, if you see here, the past 3 games, they lost all 3 games, and unfortunately, they only scored 1 goal out of those 3 games. Now, I hope coming to the next game, their offense will become a little more powerful and more attacking instead of being a little conservative on the defensive side.
Yeah.
As Joe said, they lost the past 3 games, and another thing that I take from it is that when we play home, we 1, 3, and 2. When you play home, you gotta win. You cannot go away and be 4-2-0. Like, how are you gonna win more games away than at your own field? When you come home, it's like when you gotta be like, this is where I take the biggest games, and then I'll go away and I'll see maybe a tie. You always look for the win, but if you get a tie, you'll be good. But you cannot win away and lose at home.
The Pioneer women's team does travel to Kean tomorrow. Jesse, what are you expecting to see from the Pioneers?
So when we look at the matchup with Kean, and if we look at the stats, we're a very similar team to Kean. When you look across the board, I mean, a 5-6-2 record, Kean sitting at 6-7-1, 1.85 goals per game. Kean only has 0.2 more, and then shots per game, they have 2 more than us. Assists very close at 18 and 18, so essentially the same. The thing that I want to look at for this game is them getting back on track. Something I've noticed in the past 2 games, they're not hustling as much as they normally do. You said earlier they have a week off. They need to get back into that conditioned state where soccer is running for a full 90 minutes plus. And they really need to get back into that groove of nonstop running, hustling to the ball, seeing a loose ball and going out and getting it, not giving other teams extra possessions.
Danny?
Well, to harp off of Jesse's point, I feel like they need to get back in rhythm offensively. Players like Marissa Edelman, Lorraine Moffett is the key for me. If she's able to have a good game, it'll allow players like Edelman and the Bow sisters to be free and play offensive winning football.
Joe?
Definitely. This Kean game coming up, it could be a real good confidence game for the girls, especially. They need to regroup, have some confidence back. How Jesse said, going back to him, he was afraid that they had a whole week off. Now, hopefully they could take that, in the practices, build up a team again, And I'm expecting Marissa Edelman, she's the leading scorer with 10 goals in the season right now. I'm looking for her in the offense to fire up.
Okay.
And as we all just said, the key thing is you have to win. You can just go the past 4 games, you cannot lose all 4 games, especially it's an NJAC game. These are the games that you need to win if you want to make it to the next stage.
Exactly. Now let's shift fields to the men's team. They had their hands full this week with number 2 Amherst on Monday. Joe, what were your takeaways from that match?
Yeah, definitely. Amherst come into the game. They beat number 1 Tufts 2-1 recently. And new AP rankings came out. They are now officially the number 1 team in Division 3. Now that game, it was a close game. It was 4-2 on the game. Amherst, strikers, Herman, Giamonte, and Linz, both 2 great strikers on the team. They came out fast. But the one Patterson team, they did come out a little aggressiveness. They did have tension there. The second half, they did kind of play a little sluggish. The passing wasn't the same how it was in the first half. They make a little silly mistakes, little crucial mistakes, especially one by Thomas Hatch. He whiffed on a kick that did cause the early first goal in the first half. But, eventually they started put 2 goals in the second half by Keyshawn and 1 by Kyle Adams as well. And it would have been a closer game. It could have been 3-2, Tennessee could have risen. But overall, even though they did lose to this team like this, it was a great competition for them, and hopefully they gain some confidence back up.
Mateo?
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, as he said, they're playing number 1, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and that time number 2, but it's probably the hardest team that they're going to play the whole season. And you want to play these teams when you make it into the playoffs. You already know what kind of teams you'll be expecting. Obviously, you're playing against Raw and Montclair, teams like that. They're not the same, but they're still at high level schools.
Jesse?
The biggest thing I thought in the loss was Amherst scored 2 goals in the first 10 minutes. So it seemed as though the game was already over in that first 10 minutes, but that didn't stop the men's team from fighting back. If they don't allow those 2 goals right from the start, you're looking at a 2-2 game. Amherst scored again right out of the second half, but that's a totally different game if they can just get that defense centered right. You have a freshman in goal. You have a lot of young players on that team on the back defensive end. So look for them to get better as the season goes on.
Danny, round us out here.
Okay, so I'll be the first today. Losing kind of sucks, but there can be a moral victory with this game, as the guy says, considering the opponent. So if they're able to play like this, well, shoring up the defense, like Jesse said, they'll be fine in NJAC play.
And once again, Pioneers against Kean on Saturday. Mateo, how do you see the Pioneers bouncing back against Kean?
Kean is a really good team, right? But as you see from the guys, look, we are 6-5-3. Kean is 8-4-2. Yeah, they're better than us in wins, but when you go goals per games, we almost similar. What I need our defense to be better at is not letting goals score in, because we average 2 goals per game. And if you want to make it to the next stage, you cannot average 2 goals per game. Maybe 1, but you always aiming for 0. And we have 22 goals against and 28 goals in favor. We almost have the same amount. You cannot put your forwards in that position when the defense is not helping either.
Joe?
Well, right now the Pioneers are sitting 6th in the NJAC. Kean is a really great opportunity to get an NJAC win, a conference win, which is big, especially. The offense got one key thing about the offense is move the ball around. Find the open spaces, take more shots on goals. Don't be too much conservative on the defensive side. I'm looking for the Pioneers to be high on the offense and more attacking.
Absolutely. Our eyes will be glued to the Pioneer game, both men's and women's, and good luck to them on Saturday. That's all on the pitch. After the break, it's First Pitch with the MLB crew. Stay tuned.